volume's off. Because you don't watch those games.
Basketball guy.
Yeah.
We'll start questions today with Paul. Go ahead.
My bad. Coach,
Hold on a second.
I guess you can talk about it now, but just kind of recap your signees. You signed 4 last week, and your thoughts on them.
And we're pleased with our class. Find me a head coach that on signing day that stands up in front of a mic and sounds disappointed. It just doesn't happen, regardless if they are or not. You don't sign those young men unless you feel good about who they are as people, their talent, their upside, all that goes into the evaluation process. But we feel good about them. Obviously we feel like all 4 of them have a chance to make an impact, hopefully for most of them sooner than later. Specifically, Guy Chall is obviously the biggest guy of the group. He just oozes upside, but he's definitely, a young person that will come in and have a lot to learn. There's always a transition for all the guys that are going to Division I for the first time, especially when you're right out of high school. But we believe that he's going to be a really good player. It's just a matter of when. But what a nice young man, and he's excited. We're excited. It's all really good. And then Adrian Myers is the other high school player that we signed, and really feel like we may have got a steal with him. He's a little under the radar, if you will. Not a national name, but we feel like combined with his size at his position, his ability to really shoot the basketball. He's got a beautiful stroke. He's got it with range, and he's bouncy. And so you combine all those 3 things, and he just oozes upside, and he's a very confident young man as well. And we signed the 2 junior college players, Trey Fort, who's at Howard Junior College, who has already played Division I. He's a little bit older, which is always, a nice thing to have with that experience. Comes, just an understanding of what it takes to play at this level, and we love the guy he's playing for right now. He's a good coach. He's going to continue to help him get better as the season progresses. But his athleticism and shot-making ability just kind of jumps off the page at you. And he comes from a great family as well. And then Jaquan Squad is someone that we've known for a long, long time. It's been a marathon recruiting process for him, but we're finally going to get to coach him. We've watched him from afar for quite some time, and he's kind of a combo forward that can do a little bit of everything. He can shoot it from the outside. He can score around the basket. He's got a nice mid-range, foot-fake game. He's worked on his body. It's changed over time, and I think he'll rebound for us as well. So we're certainly not done, but it's a pretty good start.
We'll keep it to coaches, right, and staff.
Coach, obviously a fast start to the season, 3 games in the first week there, I guess. Is it nice to kind of have a few days off here, and kind of what's the schedule look like as you guys prepare for the next game?
Yeah, once the game was complete on Sunday, I think everybody was excited to take a deep breath. We got out of here about 5, I think, Sunday afternoon, and, this afternoon will be our first practice since we played on Sunday, and it'll be our first real practice since last Thursday. That's quite a long time with the Friday game, and then between Friday and Sunday. Saturday was more like a shoot-around. There was no real physical banging and competitiveness in our practice that day. It was more just get ready for the next opponent, which is pretty normal when you only have 1 day in between games. So, I haven't seen the guys yet, but hopefully everybody will feel good and their bodies will feel good and they'll be ready to get back on the practice court. But it was much needed for sure.
We'll go to the second row to the right, and Theo, then we'll go to John.
When you look at South Dakota, especially with A.J. Plitzawait, what do you think of them and with him specifically?
Yeah, they got an all-name team to start. Those first 3 guys off the stat sheet are all tongue twisters for me. But, first-year coach, I know he's excited to be there. He's been there as an assistant. He's trying to put his stamp on the program. They've got some guys that have been around. You mentioned the first young man, and he had a pretty catastrophic injury a couple of years ago that really set him back, and he's just now playing basketball for, I think it's been, 14, 16 months, something like that. And he looks good. I mean, he's got a brace on, but he's still obviously a very good player. He can do a little bit of everything, but the thing that sticks out with him is just his ability to shoot the ball, and he's off to an unbelievable start. He's like 10 for 13 from three to start the year, and I know it's a small sample, but it gives you an idea of what he's capable of. And then they got the other guard that's with him, Perot Hunt, I think is this how you pronounce his name, and bigger guard that can score inside and out, mid-range, and then they got a big kid around the basket that can do everything. He can score around the basket, he can back you down, right hand, left hand, and he can shoot the three. So when you got a five-man in this game, which is becoming more common, that can stretch the floor and shoot the three, it gives your defense some more problems. But they can really shoot the ball overall. If you look at their percentages from the field, from three, from the free throw line, they're all really, really good, and they're holding their own on the backboards as well. So it'll be a different kind of team. It'll be a different team than we've played thus far, completely different style, different kind of players, which I love. The more things we can get thrown at us in the early season, the better prepared we'll be once SEC play opens up.
Chris, I know it's been 3 games, but you had the come from behind win in the opener, all the jitters that came with that, road-ish environment kind of situation where it was close and then you guys pulled away, and then Sunday's game, I mean, you've kind of been through like a lot in those first 3 games. How much do you think you've kind of grown with this team, and how much do you think you've learned about them in a short amount of time? Because in practice over the summer and everything, I mean, I'm sure you can learn some stuff, but once you get to game time, I'm sure it's much different.
It is much different. Like you said, you can learn a lot about your team each and every day, but once you go against someone with a different colored jersey, and it's meaningful in terms of the left or the right column, the W or the L, and there's obviously a lot riding on each and every game. But I felt really good after the Akron game because didn't think we played great, especially the first 15, 17 minutes of the opener, and I'm sure I made mention of it in here that I didn't know if it was more due to the jitters and the overexcitement of playing the first game of the year, and we settled down there in the second half. But I thought we played better against Akron, and we played okay against Pine Bluff as well. I mean, we caught them at the right time. We played 3 games in 7 days, and they played 4 games in 7 days, and all but one of theirs were away from home, and they had a harder travel schedule than we had. So some of that was just because of their schedule and how it unfolded for them. But the things that disappointed me the most after watching the tape was just our defensive rebounding is not where it should be. We place a lot of emphasis on that every day, and where we're at in terms of our percentage it's just not up to snuff. It's not what I'm used to. It's not what we've been preaching, and that'll be a major focus for us the next couple of days, is just getting the habit and the discipline of checking out each and every time and having that gang mentality of all 5 of the guys in the court being ball getters and chasing the ball down regardless of where it's at. And then the other one is just the one that's been consistent for us on a negative side is just, valuing the ball. The decisions we're making with the basketball. We're turning the ball over way too much and not getting a shot on goal each and every time down the court, and that's got to change as well.
Go ahead, Jack.
Coach, obviously Tolu was named the SEC Player of the Week. I guess how cool is it to see him have a hot start to the season and get that honor?
I'm happy for him. He's a hard worker. He puts a lot of extra time into the game. He spends a lot of time in the training room keeping his body right. With his history, he understands that he needs to do that. But you love when people that really pour their heart and soul into their craft get rewarded for it. And certainly, he's got much bigger individual goals and team goals than winning a Player of the Week honor, but it's still a nice little feather in the cap for him.
We'll go back to Steph, to Coach's right.
You mentioned this a bit when you guys were entering that Akron game, and we see yesterday with TCU losing. I mean, what does it mean, as a guy who's had that experience of being at a mid-major, going into an SEC road environment, and I guess how does that kind of amp a team like South Dakota up?
Yeah, I've been in those locker rooms the majority of my life. It's something we talked about a ton prior to the Akron game. In practice, heck, we talked about it before we entered the court in Philadelphia. And I just keep trying to get those kids to understand what it's like to be on the other team in these type of games, that it's the best way for them to get recognized nationally in the fall. And most of the attention isn't on the majority of the mid-level basketball programs, regardless of how good they are, unless it's local coverage or regional coverage. And in order to get that kind of exposure on the national level, you have to beat Power 5 teams. And they're normally in their barn, or if you're lucky, you get them on a neutral site court. So we'll continue to talk about whenever we play these type of programs until, I feel really good that they, are respecting their opponent each and every time and understanding the hunger that's coming out of their locker room. But at this point in the season, with us being so new, you would think, we would be as hungry as well, and understanding how meaningful all these games are if you're trying to be, a team that's talked about as an NCAA tournament team come February and March.
Go ahead, Paul.
I know you said you hadn't seen your team yet since Sunday, but any update on Rams and what you're expecting him to do this week between now and game time?
So excited that we were able to get through that game and only play him 4 or 5 minutes. Looking back, I wish I wouldn't have even suited him, to be honest with you. But you just never know how the games are going to unfold. And, so he got his first run there off the bench and played well. And then basically, once the game got to the point it did, where we felt like, we were in control and, unless something crazy happened, we were going to be fine. And so I basically verbally told him, hey, you're done unless something crazy happens the rest of the night. And he was great with it. He's been handling this situation like a veteran. He's been working around the clock with this ankle. He did it in the second half against Corpus Christi, and no one noticed it. He didn't tell anyone. When I went back and watched the game, I saw it because I knew I was looking for it. It was just a very awkward play underneath the basket that no one would have noticed unless you were watching just Rams. But he's day-to-day at best right now. The most important thing in talking with our trainer is that we don't allow this to be a lingering injury that he has for weeks or months. We've got to get him 100%. So that helped, not having to play a bunch of minutes in that game. And obviously yesterday we were off. Today, in my mind, he's not going to do anything other than maybe shoot some free throws and keep the ball in his hands a little bit. I'm a big advocate of that when kids are injured, to just have the ball in their hands so they can just keep the feel of the ball and the rhythm, shoot some free throws. If you're allowed to shoot some jump shot, do that. But we'll see how he unfolds. And he may or may not be available on Thursday. And because, again, for me, just having him healthy for the rest of the season is more important.
Got time for a couple more. We'll go back to Theo in the second row.
Coach, you mentioned last week looking at the KenPom height rankings. How much do you use KenPom, and what other statistics or analytics do you rely on during the season?
Yeah, daily. Use KenPom daily with our team, with our opponents. It's the first thing that I look at before I even look at their old school data stats, a season box score. Because that's what it's all about. It's all about percentages, like these stats that people say, rebounding margin. That means nothing to me. It's what rebounds are available to our team and what kind of percentage are we getting. That's all that matters. I mean, the old school data when it comes to rebounding to me is defunct. It just doesn't make any sense at all because it's all about how many possessions they are and how many rebounds are available. So we talk about it in our video room too. I mean, I give them an update post game when we meet. When we review the film of where we stood. In the categories that are important to us, and so we're in the middle of the pack, I think, when it comes to analytics. We don't live and die by them. We don't base every shot we take on them. But it's definitely in our room and in our program. And I still believe the game needs to be instinctual and not, you don't want them overthinking. You want them playing. But that's the main one that we use. And I'm sure there's other guys up there in that office that are smarter than me that are using a lot of them. But that's the one that I stick to the most.
Anything else for Coach before we let him go? We'll go to John to wrap it up.
Chris, how much more are you kind of experimenting and trying to figure out like a rotation? Is it still kind of like an ever-changing thing, and where are you kind of at with that?
It'll keep changing until it doesn't. That's about the best answer I can give you. I know I mentioned it post-game, but I was so excited to be able to throw those guys out there in the first half and see how they looked then rather than the last 3-4 minutes of a game like that. I'd love to have a bunch of games like that. Obviously, we're probably not going to, but when you do, what a great opportunity in the early season to get quality looks for certain guys that maybe aren't playing as much as they'd like because of just, it's a numbers game. And I love when I got a team that you got 12 or 13 guys that can help. You know, I've always believed that if you put someone in, the score goes the right direction, then that's a good run for them, and they'll have more opportunities. In the end, if that continues to be the case, then our staff and I will have tough decisions to make each and every night, and that's a problem that I'd love to have. I got no issue with that. But keeping the locker room right when you got a team like that is delicate, and we've done it before, and we know how to do it. There's a lot of conversations that are being had behind the scenes with individual players on our team to get them to understand how we feel about them and how Division I college basketball works. But, at this point right now, I couldn't tell you how many guys will be in a set rotation. The more the merrier for me. That's what I prefer. But at the same time, when it comes game time, we're going to put the guys in the game to give us the best chance to win.
Thanks, guys. We'll